Welcome everybody to the West Canada Valley Board of Education meeting, Monday, November 14th, 2022. Can we please stand for the pledge of allegiance? I pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, we're starting out with some new staff recognition.
Yeah, so last month we had a few of our new staff here to introduce. This is something for our new staff that's here tonight. This is something that we did a lot of prior to our COVID restrictions and things like that. When we have new staff on, I want to get an opportunity not only for our board to get a chance to meet you, but also for you to get a chance to see Board of Education. By no means are you expected to stay here for the entire meeting, although you are more than welcome to stay for the entire meeting. So we try to put you in the beginning here. I won't make you do huge speeches here, but I will ask you just to say a couple words about your time here so far. Some of you have been here a little bit longer than others, and we'll go from there. Mike, since you were the first one here, I'll introduce you first, okay? This is Mike Brewer. He is our other building mechanic. You met Dennis Lynch last month, and Michael's our other building mechanic, and he's been here since July?
July 1st.
July 1st, okay. Mike, how's things going?
Good. I like it here a lot. It's great. Got 5 kids here, so it costs a few extra bucks for snacks and. But other than that, yeah, things are going great.
All right. Well, Mike's off to a great start. I mean, I mentioned that last month, and Dennis is here. They're working really well together. I'm very pleased with their work, and we're fortunate to have Mike. So thanks, Mike. Kelsey Zindars, just so we can see it. Special education. Kelsey's been with us since last year, but again, the COVID restrictions. She's in her second year, right? Second
Yes.
year.
Yep.
So Kelsey, special education, high school. How you doing?
So far, so good. It's quiet. A lot of the same kids from last year, so far so good. No complaints. Everything's great.
Thank you, Kelsey.
Of course.
Ben Russo, physical education.
Yep.
You've been here a little bit longer because we had you in as a long-term. So since last year, and this is your first full-time year, correct?
Correct, yep.
Correct. All right. How's things going, Ben? You've been busy.
Everything's good, yeah. Health class has been good. PE has been good. Coaching has been a lot more fun than I thought it was going to be because I get to hit every grade level with PE and the coaching and the high school with the health. So it's been going good so far. It's been welcoming and good for me.
How's the lifeguard going?
Good. I'm getting ready for that. I'm trying to get everything ready for that one after football. Football is a little crazy, so it's time to sit down and get ready for that and get some lists going.
So Ben's a swimmer. He did football for us, modified, and he's also spent a whole weekend here from Friday to Sunday, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, learning to be a lifeguard instructor.
Yep. Correct.
Yeah,
Yep.
correct. So he spent a whole weekend here doing that. So welcome, Ben.
I think I've got 6 kids signed up for lifeguarding right now, so it's pretty cool to get some new lifeguards out there.
Thanks, Ben.
Thank you.
And finally, Lindsay Buckley, English.
Hello.
New this year. Hi, Lindsay. How are you?
Good.
Good.
Well.
Welcome. Just a little bit about your start to the year here.
Yeah, it's been good. At first, it was kind of a whirlwind. This is my first full year teaching. I had a long-term sub position before this. So it took a while to get a groove, but I'm finally getting one, and it feels really good. So, yeah, it's great. I actually have 2 of your sons.
Yeah.
So, yeah, they're always like, can I go see my dad? Can I go see my dad? Can I go see my dad? I'm like, can you write me a paragraph first? So, yeah, it's good.
The rest she'll talk after, too. All right. Well, thank you so much. Does anybody have any questions for any of our new teachers?
Welcome everyone.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you all for coming. Again, you're more than welcome to stay. You're more than welcome to get home if you'd like to right now. But thank you for coming forward and introducing yourself to our board. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Have a good night.
Yeah. Were there any questions on the consent agenda? I didn't get any questions, but just in case. No? Motion to approve the consent agenda. Sarah first, Sean second.
Okay.
Administrator. Is that what you're?
That's okay,
favor for
you're
that?
good, just, yeah, you can do all in favor. Go ahead.
All in favor? Yes.
All right.
Okay, administration reports. Mrs. Holmes?
Okay, so we had kind of a busy month here. October 18th, we had our annual fire prevention day for K2. Started off in the morning program and all of the grade levels got to work their way outside. We had the smokehouse here and we had a couple fire trucks and the firefighters did a great job presenting to all of them about fire safety. Then October 19th, our kindergarten students, they took their field trip to Teal's Farms. And on the 20th, our second grade students took a field trip to Farmers Museum in Cooperstown. The 25th was kind of a busy day. You all know in PM we did our trunk or treat. Our sisters did that, and as usual, that was a great turnout. Prior to that, we had a half-day superintendent's conference day. We had a variety of things that went on that day. Kindergarten worked on their Terra West ELA units. Grades 1 and 2 participated in a make and take for the Orton-Gillingham color-coded phonemic awareness and phonics binders. We had our grades 3 and 4 teachers developing spelling lists and plans to use the Orton-Gillingham strategies in the 3rd and 4th grades to improve our spelling a little bit in writing. And grades 5 and 6 participated in a math workshop presentation with Corey Rogotsky. He actually works under Tanya Schnabel as a math coach, so he visited us that day. And then on the 31st, we had our K2 parade for Halloween. We invited parents and they stood outside as we walked the sidewalk. And then November 1st through 10th, we had our team data and RTI action planning. So what I brought you and passed out was just to give you an example of what those look like and what we actually do on those days. We presented some data and I see you've got the data presentation in front of you for the state assessments. And so all of the different grade levels work together to kind of go through the data. They look at the item analysis, if they're in grades 3 through 6, or 4 through 6, I should say, from the state assessments last year. They look at their STAR report assessment results. They look at their Orton-Gillingham assessments, obviously their Journeys assessments, their math assessments. And then together as a team, they develop groups based on needs, which is what you'll see there. I removed the full names and put the initials of the kids, but if you keep flipping through there, you'll see that they work together for a day and they look to see what they need to work on based on the results. They group the kids according to whatever the kids need to work on. They assign a teacher to that group. And then they do some progress monitoring throughout the quarter to make sure that they're making progress. And then we do another one all over again for the next quarter. So I know I talk about those a lot, so I just wanted to give you an example of what they look like. The ICANN statements that you see, those are the actual skills that they're working on. We turn them into ICANN statements for the students. So the teachers post them and go over them so the students know what the expectation is. And then we had November 9th, we did our Veterans Morning Day program celebration. And the 10th, we had the kids go down for a sneak peek of how to succeed in business. So it was a pretty busy month. Any questions about anything?
Thank you for the Veterans Day. That was very nice.
Very nice this year. They did a great job. All of the teachers got together this year and did a little something extra, so I thought it was wonderful. We had a great turnout. They really enjoyed it. Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Just quickly, as Mrs. Holmes mentioned in front of you, just the comparative results that we didn't have in the last month that we do have now. Those are in front of you, she was referencing there, so you get an idea comparatively, regionally, where we stand in terms of the state testing results. So wanted to make sure you got that as well.
And the one I gave you is 6th grade because as you'll see as you're looking through that, it was our 5th graders that struggled. The rest of them looked pretty good. So the plan that you have is the plan that they put together to help those students in the 5th grade this year succeed in 6th grade.
Mr. Ray?
So we're winding down this with the fall sports stuff. I was writing out a few miles today. I just wanted to check some stuff. And I figured I'd let you know we did 4,300 miles on field trips and sports trips in the fall. I normally don't track it that way, but I wanted to track it just to see where we end up, and it's going to save me work for next summer, so kind of helps things out. Also, I had a staff member come to me that they're going to be retiring in January. It was one that we anticipated anyways, we just didn't have a date. She's going to give me a date in the next couple days, hopefully, and then we'll have a retirement coming up. our new bus is still expected to be mid-January. Haven't heard anything different with them yet. I'm still hoping that it's mid-January. They're hoping to, so. Some other miscellaneous things I want to go over. You guys probably heard in the news about Adirondack getting the grants for the electric buses. That's what I was talking about back in July. They make it sound like it's really good on the news, but like I told you guys before, there's some things that came along with that too. That's going to cost them quite a bit of money. So, just wasn't sure if you guys had any questions on that stuff at this point.
So just as we talk a little bit about that, you'll see a lot of that in the news because the dates are still there for long term. And so Mr. Ray's monitoring that, but there's a lot in terms of, I mean, the charging stations, the electrical work, there's just a lot, and just the distances that we're driving, and so, I mean, there's just a million things. Plus, not, on top of that, we're not talking about, I'm sure, you know, if it gets pushed further, there'll be some sort of incentive program, but we're talking at least double, right, cost of
Yeah,
buses.
so in order for them to even talk about charging here at the school, the infrastructure has to change a lot in order to, for example, one charger takes 600 volts. And I don't even know if there's enough at the pole for that. They would have to, you know, run more power from the substation. At this point here, that would be a cost to the district. At some point, there's gonna have to be some kind of funding somewhere for it. What they're saying is, they're not saying you have to buy electric buses in the future. They're saying it has to be zero emissions. Right now, propane, natural gas, they're pretty close to being zero efficient, or zero emissions. So hopefully, they will get there to zero. That'll be another solution. Propane buses have been out there for a while. I'm not gonna say they're good or bad, but they still run them, and they've been out there for probably 10 to 15 years at this point. So.
I want to just mention to Mr. Ray as well, and this is just my own personal observation, I don't know what everybody else thinks, but I kind of have been keeping an eye on it as the year. Put a lot of work into getting that reduced out front. And I'm not gonna say we don't still have people, that's not gonna happen no matter what we do, but in general, it's pretty good out there. I mean, there's a lot of slowing down cars out in front with that 45-mile-an-hour change. It's a noticeable difference with those lights blinking out there, so I appreciate the work you did on that.
Any other questions?
Thank you. Mr. Doherty?
So fall sports, we just wrapped up about a week ago. Winter sports, we just started today. So winter varsity and JV sports, they're going right now. As for the fall, we were boys varsity football league champs, and Annalise Grabowski was Section 3 diving champion, which we've never had before. So those were our two big accomplishments here. We streamed all of our home football games this year. They progressively got better, each one of the streams that we did, and like I said, that all goes back to the fact that our scoreboard is just not in the right place. So we're using a different system called Production Truck. So there were a lot of bumps in the road for the first two games, but the last game we did was like you were watching a game on TV. So we were real proud of that. So we're going to continue to do that next year. Stole some of my thunder, but Mr. Russo did complete his certification. So homecoming weekend, he was here from 4 o'clock till 9 o'clock Friday night, 7 in the morning till I think 8 o'clock on Saturday, and then 7 till 8 o'clock on Sunday to get the entire course in. And over the weekend, there was him, and there was a couple other people that took the course as well too. But he does have that, and we do have 6 people signed up. I'm hoping it'll be the solution here in the end for us, that we'll have kids that are trained to be lifeguards that can help us out with our, whether it's a swim night or whether it's another one of these programs here. I've even started talking with the guidance office. Another thing that we've talked about before is like official shortages. I met with some people at athletic council the other day, and you do have to be 18 to become an official. But if you go through some of these classes and you give your name to the state can go out to these different boards and say, hey, these kids, they're a little bit young, but maybe they could do some modified games. It might not be the answer to everything, but potentially we could have, Mr. Russo or Coach Oben run some of these like coaching classes or officiating classes for like half-year credits, electives for some of our older students. Like I said, winter sports started today. Some bad news, it looks as though we're gonna have to cancel our girls tip-off tournament. All 3 of our JV teams that we originally had lined up have all folded. There are no JV programs. we were down to just Richfield, and we were gonna play them back-to-back days, just like we had done last year after the other schools folded on us. And then news came out on Friday that Richfield will no longer have a JV girls basketball team. As it stands right now at our league CSD meeting the other day, there's only 6 schools in the entire Center State Conference that feel confident that they're gonna be able to field the JV basketball team for girls at this point. So the schedules that have been released and that were in the newsletter, they very well could change as far as the girls go. You might even be looking at standalone girls varsity games this year, because the JV teams that are left are not going to be the ones necessarily that have varsity teams. And with only 6 people scrambling, it's not like I can get Clinton's girls to come here on the night that we play Morrisville, because every other, the other 5 schools are gonna be trying to get those nights too. So I don't know what that's gonna look like for you yet. I have a scheduling meeting on Wednesday where we're gonna talk about spring sports, but I have a very good feeling that the majority of the talk is gonna be about basketball, like it always is.
So I want to just put that into perspective. There are 23 Center State Conference schools, and there are 6 JV girls basketball teams. 7. Yeah, that just gives you an idea of the area in terms of numbers of girls JV basketball right now.
But
Who doesn't have one? Who's not going to be?
So basically, what it boils down to us is your entire league. I mean, the first 3 hands I saw were Dowsville, Herkimer, Frankfurt. The teams, Poland, I believe, is going to have one. Oriskany is confident they're going to have one. Clinton was going to have one.
Remsen?
Canastota, I don't think, no, Remsen doesn't even have a girls varsity. I think those were 5, I can't remember. Anyway, I'll know better after Wednesday about who's going to have them, but it's, because that's the other problem too. Yeah, you have 6 left, but they might be B schools that we're going to have to play against now. And just also, I don't want you to think that we're immune to this. Like currently you have 7 girls for girls varsity and 7 girls for girls JV right now. We're down, we were 8-8 last week, and now we're down to 7-7. So I hope it goes back to 8-8, but I mean, like next week it could be 6-6. You know what I mean? It's, and originally I thought it was all COVID stuff, but I don't know that I can keep blaming everything on COVID and all this stuff. I mean, I think we're coming to a point in time now in some of these sports where the bench player doesn't want to be the bench player anymore, you know what I mean? So you're losing kids that don't want to put in the time if they're not going to play. And it's tough to combat those things. The other thing too is, I think a lot of our boys soccer issues this year were, we didn't think we were going to be good, and people don't want to go out and lose. So you're darned if you do, darned if you don't, you know what I mean? If you have enough to run the team, but you don't have enough to be good, you get beat all the time, and the kids don't want to play. Or if we were to consolidate and put 14 on the team, now all of a sudden I've got 5 or 6 girls that don't play at all, and they're not going to come back next year. So I'm going to continue to talk with the coaches, and we're going to, feel this thing out and do our best to keep the programs going, because once you get rid of the teams, you see how hard it is to get back. The one good thing is our modified girls numbers are good this year. Last year we only had 1 team. We'll definitely have enough for 2. On paper right now, we definitely have enough for 2 teams. We've got a strong group of 7th graders coming up, and last year's 7th graders will continue to play this year. So I'm hoping it's going in the right direction. I'm hoping it's just a little blip, but I just want you guys to be aware of all this stuff. So the boys still looks good. Our numbers are solid for JV and varsity. We'll still continue to have our winter holiday tournament here. They'll still go to their tip-off tournament down in Richfield. Nothing changes on that. The girls will still participate in the Adirondack tournament as well. Indoor track schedule was finally released by Section 3. If you have anybody that does it or you know people that do, there are a couple of nights this year that it will be on Thursday nights. So I don't know if you've ever been to an indoor track meet, but they run very late on Friday nights, which they've always been, it's Friday night. But due to Utica University's availability, last year I think there was 1 Thursday night. This year I think there's 3 Thursday nights. So it'll be a late night, wrapping that right back around into school. That's just due to their availability. There's no other place to do indoor track meets around. So.
What are the numbers for indoor?
I just talked to Mr. Hoban. They had their first practice. I think they were 16 boys and 18 girls. So it's a little bit down for the girls. They're usually in the 20s, but it's a little bit higher for the boys. Usually he's got 12 or 13 boys or something. So it's about the same overall number, just a little shift in those 2.
That's 9 through 12.
So we do that just like we do with the golf or outdoor track now. So we let the 7th and 8th graders come along and they can practice and do all this stuff, but if they're unable to pass the APP test, then they can't compete in the meets. They still get to go along with the team, they get to be there for all of it, because we don't want to discourage anybody from participating, but there is no actual modified indoor track, so.
How many are seventh and eighth grade?
On that list, I don't know that, but I could check that out. It's usually not a lot. There's usually not a lot of modified kids doing the indoor track. The bowling schedule was just released, so we got that all scheduled. We had been going to Boonville for a couple of nights because the oiling machine was broken in Little Falls, but we were back at Little Falls tonight, so that's good. I know practices had come up before, but then COVID came along, so we weren't able to do any of that. But I was able to talk with them on the phone today, and we got, I think, five or six practices lined up with them. So those kids will be able to have that going on this year too. So the only schedules that aren't out at this point are modified girls and boys basketball, which normally would be out by now, but because of the official shortage, we're going to start that a little bit later this year in January and run it a little bit longer into March. So most of the teams will be done except for just teams that are really advancing in sectionals will have a better chance of getting officials for our modified sports. As for spring sports, nothing has changed there. I'm still concerned about our baseball numbers, and it's the same across all schools. I've reached out to Dawesville, like I told you I had anticipated doing. They're also in the same exact situation. He's going to bring it up to his board to see what they thought about the whole thing, and that's kind of where we're at right now. So I may be coming back to you to seek approval for a combination with Dawesville, because I don't think it's going to get any better. Little League numbers are not huge like they used to be either, so you've got a smaller pool down there playing that as well.
For what sport?
Baseball.
Went to winter to spring, I
Yeah.
didn't
For
How
the
would you
tournament
decide-
that's here,
Go ahead.
for the tournament that's gonna be here that you might have to cancel, is that BAAGA or, boosters?
That was a booster. Both of the tournaments were boosters.
You'll let them know?
I've already talked to them, and,
Okay.
and they
Just
said
don't
the
want
same
them
thing,
losing
that,
money.
yeah, because it'd be very difficult for them to turn a profit with that.
Yes,
Fewer
just don't want them
teams
to
going,
lose.
When you combine, I'm just curious how it works. Where would you practice? Would you split it up between
So
Dawesville and what here, or?
again, these were very preliminary conversations that I had with them. We would be looking to host, so we would be
Oh.
West Canada Valley. Dawesville kids would
Oh,
come and
okay.
play on our team. They were responsible for their own travel to and from West Canada. They would come here, ride the bus with us, or potentially, I mean, if you're playing, if you're playing in Little Falls, maybe it's easier for them to get a ride there. Those are all things we'd have to work out as we
Right.
went along. We've never done it before, with the exception of bowling, and that's only ever been for one or two kids.
Swim.
Yeah, you had a Dodgeville girl that came over here and swam.
The Dodgeville school is responsible for providing them transportation?
Generally not. So when we had kids that,
Fair.
wrestled at Poland, they were on their own to get there back and
Really?
forth for practices and games, and if there were costs incurred. Basically, all you're doing when you participate and you're the joining school in it, you're allowing your students to go over there and be coached by their coaches and do all that. It's not to say that there aren't things that could happen. If it were to get big and you got 3 teams, modified JV and varsity, we only have 1 field. Maybe you do look to send some kids down there and you could use their facilities too as well. But again, those are things that we've never dealt with before. The bowling thing and swimming's easy, you only have 1 pool, so it's the same thing. Bowling, it's an outside location from here anyway, so no matter what, their parents would be traveling, whether they came here or went down there. So.
And basketball would obviously be too late to allow any other school to join with us.
Yes, at this point you definitely
Yeah.
would, because you would need board approval, and we're here right now for the
Right,
whole thing.
yeah, and it's already started, but.
Mhm. And that's to save that entire sport, baseball. Like I said, it's coming up. I have major concerns about it. At least with the girls' basketball, I feel pretty confident about what's coming up through us. Your youth numbers are still, pretty good down there too. So we got pre-mod teams going. They're good with that. But baseball is.
Our baseball's pretty strong though, isn't it? We've got a pretty good,
You've got a good core group of players. You've got a handful. You can make a solid infield, but you might only have 10 kids. You might only have 9 kids, you know what I mean? And that's with some younger kids coming up and playing varsity through the APP process, which is not what you want to do, is fill teams because of that, but.
How do they go about that? For example, with basketball, moving kids up from modified to JV?
So the coaches, how it's supposed to work is the coaches are supposed to come to me and say that we're interested in doing, having this student tested, and they come up. And then if they pass the APP test, then they get to try out with the team. It doesn't mean that you make the team, it just means that you can, so. But we've talked about this before. There's issues I have with that test because it's not sports specific. It's one test that is by all counts, built for a skinny, fast little athlete, you know what I mean? You could have somebody, you could have a 250-pound 8th grade boy who could play offensive line, but he's never gonna crank out 35 push-ups without stopping, and he's never gonna do 63 sit-ups in a minute, you know what I mean? So,
They get 2 chances?
I mean, yes, here's the deal, if you go out and there's 5 components to the test, if you fail all 5, we're probably not gonna give you a second try. If you get 3 out of the 5 and you're close on the 4th, then yeah, I mean, we could retest that area.
But after 2 times, you're done?
Again, if you were 1 sit-up away, we might consider doing it again, but I mean, if you're way off in these tests, then at a certain point, what are we doing, so.
How many parts does that test?
How many parts?
Yeah.
There's 5 parts.
5 parts. Do they have to take all 5?
They have to take all 5, they have to pass 4 of them.
Okay.
So in a rare case, I've had a kid go and they passed the first 4 and the last one was the mile. They said, can I just fail the mile instead of going out and running it? Yeah, so I mean, but you have to pass 4 out of the 5 components.
I have a question.
Yes.
It's not a question.
Mm-hmm.
I look at the warrants,
Mm-hmm.
and I see some warrants that we've sending cheerleaders for competition.
Mm-hmm.
We never get any results.
They came in 2nd place at sectionals.
Huh?
They said they came in 2nd place at sectionals.
Well, I would like to know that. I mean,
Mhm.
why isn't that posted someplace that we know that the cheerleaders did that well, but who did they compete against? I would like to know where they're going,
Yeah.
who they're competing against, and how we do.
Okay.
And I don't think that's asking, we're using taxpayers' money to do that.
Yeah, no, it's not asking too much. I mean, I just have never done that for like indoor track. I don't.
And the
post
other
those
thing
results.
is, there was a warrant in there, I believe, for cheerleading uniforms.
Uh-huh.
I requested way back to see a sample of what we were ordering.
Mhm.
Are they ordered?
Yeah, I think we supplied them. I think we showed that.
Huh?
I think we showed that. They had the white sleeves with the gray.
I
And
don't
the
remember
purple?
that. No, but that's okay, I'm not, that's fine. First basketball game, I'll let you know what I think of it. I know what you can do with the other ones, but that was just, but I do think, you know, we are
These look
using
much different
taxpayers'
than
money, we need to know what's going on. Maybe we don't, maybe we're sticking our
I
nose
think
in
it's
where we
just
don't
not out
belong.
there as much as other games that
That-
you know about, you know.
That's
Well,
generally what it is, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Football gets covered by the news,
Right.
basketball gets covered by the news, nobody's covering cheer competitions.
Not only
Swim
that,
doesn't
like,
get
are the
much coverage.
competitions on like the, you know, like those big poster calendars, they're not on that.
They're not, no.
You know what I mean? So
Right.
you don't know when they
Yeah.
have a competition coming up. And
Like I said, I compare it very much to indoor track. Indoor track doesn't get a lot of coverage either, you know what I mean?
Swim
That's-
doesn't,
You don't
golf
have,
doesn't.
yeah. But if you want it, I can share those results.
aren't the
Indoor
golf
track,
courses on that
is
big
that all at
poster?
Utica College now, or?
It's all at Utica University, there's one
It's
that they'll
all
do,
emails on
there's
there.
one that they'll do down at Colgate, Clinton sponsors an
Well,
invitational down
it
there,
used
and
to
they
be,
run down at
it was
that.
all at Colgate,
Yes.
that's quite a trip.
Yes, it is, and now it's
Yeah.
just one that's down there, and
At
then
least it's
sectionals could be out at OCC for your open qualifiers and
Yeah,
such.
I'm done for now.
Thank you.
All right.
And Mr. President.
So we also had a lot going on since the last board meeting. We had a 7th grade field trip to the Black River Outdoor Education Program. All our 7th graders, except for, I want to say, 1 or 2 kids, went on a trip and they were biking in Forestport for the day, had lunch there. I attended a St. Eves conference October 23rd and 24th, professional development, two full days of that, about 16 hours of that. So that was good, learned a lot, made a lot of connections with vendors and just different things that we may use down the road.
When you say St. Eves,
It's Union, the Union for Administrators.
Oh,
They're,
I was
they,
thinking St.
they're the ones who
Hospital.
put it on, Commissioner Rosa was there, she spoke, we had keynote speakers and stuff like that as well. Legal updates, different things that we need to, pay attention to down the road and things that are coming. Both academically and legal stuff that we should look at. We had our Steered Straight assembly, vaping, drug assembly for all of our students. We had Poland students come here. The Steered Straight went to Poland as well for the 9th through 12th graders. We had the 6th through 7th, there's 6th, 7th, and 8th graders here combined with Poland. Then we had our 9th through 12th graders They went up to Poland for 9 through 12 and did assembly there. And then we had a parent night the same night. The guy was excellent, probably one of the best assemblies I've been to. Talked about drugs, vaping, signs to look for, different types of vapes, ways to help, his own experience. Great assembly. I recommend it to all the administrators in the area, and maybe they have them come and do assembly for them as well. They also do some different assemblies for different things that I may look into in the future as well. The musical was November 11th and 12th. The kids did a great job, worked really hard. I believe there's a little over 500 tickets sold between the 2 nights. So, a lot going on there. November 14th, which today we had the college visit. A number of kids went to SUNY Poly and Utica College. We had a little over 20. Go with both counselors today. I walked around the campuses, did some tours. Wednesday this week, the Denali group's coming to work with our 7th and 10th graders. Both groups did a strength assessment, and then these, they're gonna have separate assemblies. They're gonna talk about the kids' strengths, group them with kids with similar strengths and tell them how those can be used and how to interact with people. We did that with a couple grades last year, so that's why we're doing 7th and 10th. This year we did 7th and 8th last year, so that'll cover all our 7th through 10th graders here in the building. We'll have had that assessment over the past 2 years. We have another field trip on the 16th. 5 kids are going to Herkimer for a creative writing workshop with Bruce Koval. So we got that going on. Our half day that we had restorative practice, community building, PD for the whole afternoon for our teachers. Work on ways to, find alternatives to, discipline the classroom, how to communicate with students, how to de-escalate situations, how to build community so that we can be proactive in trying to work with our kids. We've been having AIS, RTI meetings. This past month, we had a 5-week one where we met with teachers regarding students who are struggling in different classes. We're having meetings this week as well, and Monday next week, to try to be proactive, identify some of our students' needs, and work with them. The last thing I have here is senior trip. So I received, Mrs. Petro and I received 2 overnight options that we're looking at, so she's going to present those to the kids this week, see which option they prefer. We're looking at approximately $16,000 for each trip, which comes down to, currently we have about $6,000 in fund. So for the trip to be paid for fully, we have to raise another $10,000 for the senior class. If we didn't raise any more money at this point, you're looking at about $250 to $275 per student. That's based on approximately 40 out of the 50 students going on the senior trip. They raised $2,000 doing the Krispy Kreme. $1,000 of that goes to individual students. So what they're doing this year for the seniors is if you're doing the fundraising, half the money that you raise, the profit, will go back to you towards your trip. So the kids who are not participating in the fundraising aren't getting the full benefit of the fundraisers. Half of it goes into the big pot, and the other half goes to the students who are actually getting out there selling the Krispy Kreme donuts, doing the fundraisers. So it's something we're doing. We're trying to incentivize kids to. And if you choose not to do it, you'll be paying some money out of pocket. Whereas if you really push these fundraisers, you may be able to have your trip paid for through hard work. So that's one thing. We're looking to do 3 payments for the trip. The first one would be a non-refundable payment in December, and that will get us some numbers so we can officially start planning the trip and making our payments that we need to get that set up.
What other expenses do they have for the remainder of the year?
They donate a chunk, $500 a yearbook, something yearly that they put towards a yearbook. They purchase senior gifts. They do a few scholarships at the end of the year. You're talking probably $1,000 to $1,500 additional expenses throughout the year.
And
that's depending
they
on
have
the
more fundraising planned?
Yeah, they're doing at least another Krispy Kreme, which they profited 2,000 on Krispy Kreme, so that would.
A lot of donuts.
It is a lot of donuts, yeah. They sold $5,500 with the donuts, but I think they had to pay like $3,500 for the donuts, so the 2,000 was a profit.
Oh.
So
Are they
that's
doing candy bars too?
I want to say the juniors sell the
Juniors have
candy
their candy bars, but
bars.
I didn't know if they did them too.
No, she's actually, Miss Petro is looking at other fundraiser opportunities. Kids are thinking about ways they can raise money, so, you know.
Where exactly did they want to go? What were the 2 trips?
So we haven't released that to the kids yet or anything like
Oh,
that, so
okay.
I didn't want to kind of.
Well, they're not
Put the
watching,
cat
so
out
where
there.
they going?
What's that?
They're not watching where they go.
So there's one planned out of state and one in state. One's in Pennsylvania, and the other one is Lake George. And they have various things they're going to do, each place. And we can tweak those based on some of the kids' interests, funding as well. That's looking at the price is based on double occupancy in each room. If we were doing singles, it would cost much more. The in-state trip would be using our school buses, and it would still be about 16,000. The out-of-state trip would be estimating about 5,000 to 6,000 for a charter bus. That would be the difference.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, motion to enter executive session for appointment of personnel matters, including review and discussion of employees and contract negotiations. Janine first, Sarah second, all in favor? action items, personnel report. Motion to accept the appointment of Steven Sinakowski, custodian, provisional appointment for the negotiated salary of the CSD bargaining agreement effective November 15th, 2022. Lean first, Sarah second, all in favor? Oh, June. Okay. Oh, second.
Kelly, what's the
Yes.
rate on that?
It's in the know.
Thank you.
Motion to appoint Kaden Fitzsimons volunteer assistant girls basketball effective 2022-23 school year. Sarah first, Janine second, all in favor? No. Okay, tax collector report.
Okay, so you have that in front of you. Mrs. McCree's tax collector report with the numbers on it. This is something that has to be approved annually by us once the taxes have been collected. Anybody have any questions on the report?
Okay. Motion to approve the tax collector report. Shauna first, Janine second, all in favor? The corrective action plan from 2020.
Yeah, so you have in front of you the 2020 corrective action plan. This is the second time you've seen this if you were on the board in 2020. I'm going to take full blame for this. I have absolutely no idea. I think what I did probably during 2020 is combined it into one approval into the audit, which we did approve, and this together, like we did one. So it's got to be separated, and we do that every year, so I don't know why that year we didn't. But regardless, the audit takes that long to get closed out over 2 years. They want to see that it's in the minutes that we approved the corrective action plan. So you've already seen this. This is 2020. If there isn't any questions, I just need everybody to approve it so I can have it in the minutes that it is approved by the board.
Okay, motion to approve the corrective action plan from September of 2022. 2020. Sean first, Sarah second, all in
I have
favor?
a question.
Yes, sir.
Is our school lunch fund still in deficit?
It is, but we made a huge profit last year, so.
How much? We had credit?
Yeah, we had a big profit last year, yeah.
And it's still in,
Yeah, because we were in triple digit deficit, so we got it down a lot. So I'm hoping this free lunch program will get us.
how far down are we?
We were at 80 this last audit, right? Wasn't it? The last audit we just had.
I think we were in the good side. How much about this past year? You remember? Yeah, I know. We were in the good quite a bit though with the free lunch reimbursement, and then we're back into that. So.
We were in the good,
Yep.
which means we cleaned up for that.
Some of it.
We still haven't cleaned up.
Yeah, we're still cleaning.
What's our deficit?
I want to say it was 200,000 to start. I have to verify the numbers.
Okay, all right.
I don't want to just like swap numbers.
But it was
No.
a big sum.
Yes,
Yeah.
it was significant. And
Okay.
last year's numbers alone, we were to the good. But we have to make up for the 20
Yeah.
previous years.
Okay. Yeah, everybody. Okay. All right, discussion items, capital project.
Okay, so I want to talk about the last 2 meetings of the capital project. I also want to talk a little bit about the field lighting piece of this, which you have a handout for. But before I get to that part of it, I kind of want to talk about where we are with the project. And Kelly, you can correct me if I'm wrong at any point in time here. The project has been logged at SED. Wasn't that the last email we just got? That was the emergency project, okay. So we haven't officially heard yet, although last week we were supposed to have it logged in. One of the biggest issues, and I mentioned this last month, is the grant department is causing all these delays. And the infrastructure between the federal government grant money and the state review people are really causing this conflict. And so as of Friday, it was supposed to be logged in. All right, once that's logged in, we have 30 to 45 days of review, all right, which is, or for approval through the third-party review. So we're still on track to get this done, in December and get our bidding in February, January, February bidding. So that's where we are with that, but I want everybody to be aware that it's one of those things, I'll talk a little bit more about it when we get going here. It's nice to have $1.6 million in federal funds to use, which is 100% money. On the other hand, there causes complications at times when you're trying to value that into there. So that's the first part of this. Second thing we got updated on was the fuel tank that's underground out there. I had them review whether that was still the best way to do it, to keep it underground, and the advisement I continue to get is the best way to do it is to keep it in ground in terms of where we have it, cost effective, and what we're going to do with it. They have been on site to do the environmental review. We're still waiting. They said 10 to 14 days to get that testing back, so they did the soil testing. This was kind of a light answer from them, but at this point, they're not expecting any cleanup necessary, which is important because if there's a cleanup needed, that's just more cost that we need that's associated with the fuel tank replacement that's out there. We discussed again cuts, and again, we're not at that point yet where we're going to be discussing this, but we are going to be talking about paring this project down in some areas. We are going to probably have to talk about some of this project being alternates at some point here. So I just want to keep that on the table with everybody that's here, that, yes, we have it in, we have the approved project, we have the list of items we want to get done, but we all know where we are economically in this country right now. So the cost of these items and the cost of the work are going to determine a lot of what we're doing here. Excuse me. Now, the other thing that's going to complicate that is the $1.590611 million, $1.6 million that we have in federal funds. Because it's nice to have, as I mentioned, but that's earmarked for certain things. So we can't just use that for whatever we want to use it for, as I mentioned. So I'm just going to give you a list of things here, just so you have an idea. Bus garage fans, high school gym fans, toilet room fans, utility controls, boiler room work in terms of heating and cooling, utility controls in terms of air conditioning, the pool dehumidifier on the roof, other exhaust fans. There's 3 different grants that we're dealing with here, and they all have to be associated in some way with controlling and improving the air quality in this building. End of story. So like, I can't take any of that 1.6 million and use it for one of the pool pumps downstairs. Okay, that money can't be earmarked for that. It has to be for certain approved items which we submitted in. So when we start to talk about the cut or things that we need to pare down, that's another variable to our discussion. Okay, yes, this isn't a high priority for us, but it's also part of the grant money. So we've got to maneuver things and so forth. Now, keep in mind, I think we might have more work, Kelly, than 1.6 million that might qualify. So we might be able to pare something down that's in that $1.56 million and shift things over to it. So, yeah. So those are all things I just want you to be aware of as we move forward in this project. And I know at some point we've talked about this as well. I just want you to understand that we're not at a point where we're making specific decisions about what we're doing yet. So this project doesn't have a lot of that. It has a lot of plumbing, electrical, things like that. But there are some things, if we keep the bleachers in the bleachers, what do those look like? How do we want those to look? Things in terms of any sort of, there's not a lot, carpeting, I think we got some carpeting. There's not a lot of, like the last project, those that were on this board at that point in time, we were talking about the design of the parking lot, where you wanted the entrances to be, where we pulled over, where the bus loops. There was just a lot of talk and a lot of different things that we did. The track, what color do we want it, how do we want the track to look, how many lanes. I mean, there was just a lot of group work and group discussion on a lot of the things that we did in the last project. This project doesn't have, and I keep using the term fluff, it just doesn't. It's mechanical, it's electrical, it's plumbing, with not a lot of site work and so forth. So anyway, that's where we are with that portion of the project, and that's going to kind of sound funny as I talk about the next part of it, because when I'm at one out of one side of my mouth, I'm talking about the project and paring down an alternate, and then on the next thing, I'm gonna talk a little bit about a donation that we got. Or that we are anticipating receiving. So as everybody knows, we've been in discussion with a person who is interested in donating $500,000 to what we're doing outside on the track and football field, specifically for the lights that are on that field itself. So I gave you a handout. Let me just find mine. I gave you a handout that kind of highlighted some things that I want to make sure everybody's kind of aware of. So a couple things, and I really want to start with the background on this so that everybody's clear on this. Back in June, the first part of this discussion started about a potential donation to our project. Through further discussion, it kind of got to that point that I just mentioned about the lights. Since then, I've had a lot of discussions with the donor, discussions about, when that, if we accept that donation, when that we would need it, about our project, about, legal contractual things about guaranteeing the money and the willingness to do all those kinds of things and all those behind the scene things. And then I've kind of kept everybody here in the loop about that during our board meetings. Now, with that, there was a lot of different things that were different about this, and this is creating another variable to this whole entire project. So one of the things that's a big time variable to this is that the field lighting is not currently part of our project. So what that means is we had a voter approved project last year, and this is just not something that was in it that was approved that we're paying for with money that was donated. That would be simple. Okay, that would be simple. I'd just say, hey, we got $500,000 to pay for something we had in our project that we don't have to pay for now. So that's obstacle number one. So this lighting project would require additional planning preparation. The good news with all of this is that we've got a team here already with an architect and that we've already hired and they're on staff. So we're not like physically hiring these people beyond this. They're already here. But because it's not part of this project, regardless of the fact that it's a donation for something, it's an item that would have to be voter approved. And I did some work over the last few months to try to make sure that that's really the process that needed to take place. So regardless of what we decide to do with this donation or this potential donation, please know that we'll have to put this up, they'll have to do the work, we'll have to present it, if this work's being done, and it would still have to be voted on. Now the bigger piece, another bigger piece of this, is understand that the lighting and the way that things cost right now, that donation is something that would be toward the lighting, because it's not going to cover all the costs of the lighting on top of that, which is another additional amount of money that would have to be put into this. The other piece that I've been listening to through our discussions is the idea that if we have bleachers and we have lights out there, that we really, as a group in here, and I think probably would have support of a lot of student athletes and parents and kids, that it becomes more of a multi-use field than just for track and football. Now, I'm going to stress this. You can do that on a grass field. I'm not saying you can't, I'm not saying there isn't anybody that does that. But the more games you play on that field, first of all, it can't be used as a practice field. But the more games you put on that field, the condition of that field is the work to keep that field good, and the condition that we're going to have on that field is going to be difficult. So for example, if you have a Friday night football game on the field in October, and you have a soccer game on the field on Saturday in there, I'm not sure what conditions that field's going to look like on a Saturday the next day when you have a grass field. So I just want to stress that part of it as well. Regardless of all of this, whatever we decide going forward, and I'm not asking for any decisions tonight, you'll see that, I just want you to guide me a little bit, is installing the lights would not happen until the following summer. So you're not going to see lights on that field in the first phase of this project. There's work that's got to be done. It would have to be bid. It would have to be, like I said, whether it got voter approved in May or next fall, whatever, it would push this into the next summer. Now the project's still open. It's all, you you look at it like phase 2 of the project, it's, you know, but we would vote again as phase 2 and continue on with that. So if you go on to the second page of this little packet I gave you on the project, I took you through, and I want to take you through every part of it, but I took you through some real hypotheticals. Again, these are not anywhere near concrete items, and nothing in here am I recommending and so forth. But I want to give you just a little bit of an idea of what you have in front of you here. So you have a district project that is $4,916,458, okay? With the 93% aid that you get on a project over the 15 years, your aid is going to be approximately $4,572,306, which leaves you with $344,152. So when we talk about the district share, that's kind of what we're talking about. Again, those aren't blanket numbers, but those are the numbers that we're talking about. Now, you also have a federal project that is going to have $1,590,881, which is what I talked about earlier here. Now, your aid on that is exactly that same number, so there's no cost. That's 100% money toward the items in this project that we're doing. Keep in mind, those are toward the monies that we earmark for the things that fit into that grant. So hopefully you're with me here. So the total work that's being done here on what's been approved here is $6,507,339. You have your aid, that's the next number. You have the federal aid, which leaves you with, basically you're getting a $6.5 million project for $344,000 in phase 1 of this over time. Okay, so is there any questions on that part? Okay, so now, the lighting project. So if you decide that you want to move forward with the donation, accept it, and take it in and do the lighting project, we can do that. So what would be first put together is the field lighting project with the donation, and the district would have to decide on how they were going to pay the remaining costs, bond for the remaining costs, so forth for that. There would have to be a public hearing, like I said, spring and summer, maybe, or in the spring or in the next fall, with looking at a 24 construction. You're probably looking close to $1 million just for the lights. Okay, so pretty close to that. Hoping it'll be a little under that, to be quite honest, so I'm giving you a number of $1 million. Minus the $500,000 obviously donation, well, minus $930,000 in state aid, I should say first, which leaves $70,000, but you also have a $500,000 donation there. So that can be worked depending on how, you know, Ms. Crossett and our financials look at this. One of the things that's hard about projects is the first payment. So the first payment is always made on a project in a school without aid. So you have to come up with that first payment. It's kind of like first payment on your house or vehicle or whatever. But then for all the years after that, the aid starts generating. So you're getting that 93% back every year until the whole thing's paid off. So you could look at the donation as paying the first payment on things, paying toward it, really wouldn't cost anything in that sense. And, you know, in the end, you're getting lights for pretty minimal cost. Now, as I mentioned in the discussion, and with the person who is thinking of anonymously donating, there was some discussion about, you know, the real idea behind donations is to help spark something that maybe districts couldn't do. So I kind of felt in my discussion that if you have potentially a bleacher system, you have potentially lights, we want the whole multi-use, our teams being able to use it, all that kind of thing. You know, what would this look like in terms of expanding this and just finishing this off? Because in the end, I look at this a little bit, I'm not sure, I'm thinking none of us in this room will be around again, working on a project where you have probably $2.1 million in, I'm gonna say, in quotes, free money. All right, I know it's gotta come from somewhere, somebody's gotta pay, I get all that. But you have 1.6 and 500,000 that's being slid over. So, as we look to put this together, this is where I started to look at the field turf that was out there, all right? And what you've got out there is you have your brand new track, you have the drainage system for field turf already put in, you will have some additional drainage that would go underneath that would tap into the big drainage systems and the water systems that you put into this place already in your previous project. You have some conduit run for the lights and some things that are in your benefit. You've got a project team here already. And you've got $500,000 to work with toward it. So as you look through this, you could potentially look at adding the option of putting in the field turf in this situation. And again, Depending on whether you wanted to take $500,000 off the bonding of it or use it to cover the first year payment so that there's no cost on the front end of it. However that would work out might happen. Now, the obvious benefits through that, of having that is you've completed your stadium, you have lights, you've got field turf, you can play as much as you want onto it, you have no maintenance on it at all, you're not having, Greener World come in and aerate it every year for $9,000, you're not, those kinds of things. So you have a whole bunch of additional things. You can play multiple sports, you can play 2 games on there in one night, you can play a soccer game at 4:30, you can play a night soccer game after it, you can do a whole bunch of things that you can't do with a grass field. You just can't. So I just feel like it's my job to share this with you and kind of guide your direction. So if you flip over to the last page, if you look at this, I used a real rough number of 2.9 million, okay? And if you look at the 93% aid on 2.9 for phase 2, this would include the lights and the field turf and all the rest. Your stadium would be done out there. You'd be looking at a district share of 203,000 over time on that, with the 500,000 donation either to offset that cost or make first year payment or however work best in the financial needs. So if you look at the overall summaries, and again, these are really just rough numbers, there's interest and there's all different things that play into this. But if you look at option 1, you look at option 1, you have the 344 left to the district share plus 70, which is 414,152. And you have the 500,000 donations, so that kind of covers it, just so you know, there in the end. And then you have the project with option 2, which gets you up to 547 over that amount of time. So for another, $130,000, you have field turf. So, I tried to go through the complete project summary for you also on that page. The total project with both phases, which is option 2, over the 2 phases would be $9,407,339. Again, rough number. $7,269,306 in aid over that. $1,590,881 in federal aid. $500,000 donation. $47,152. You know what I mean? So, really rough summary over 15 years. But I just think I wouldn't be doing my job if I didn't share that with you, because I just don't know if you'll have opportunities in the future to leverage $2.1 million. Well, 1.6 in federal and 500 each in 2.1. So I'm not asking you for anything other than the project team's not going to do any work on it if there is zero interest in me pursuing that. If you are interested at all in me inquiring into this further, both options obviously, then I need to do that. If there's no interest in it, and you're not committing to anything, but if there's interest, I'll do that. If there's no interest, then I just pull it and we decide that's the end of it and we'll just go. And I can answer any questions at this point you need me to, but I can't have them do work on it. Our last discussion on this was, can you have this discussion with the board? And if, then I can come back with a little bit more concrete numbers. But this is roughly what you're looking at.
The only question I have is, you said previously the field out there now already has the, I don't know the word, drainage already in place, so why
So when
was
you
that?
so what we did is the track, and you can see the grates that are around it.
So that was just for the track purposes?
Right.
Okay.
But you would have needed to do all that for field turf, so that's all prep work for field turf. Because you would have had to create that grate, create the tap system, so to tap into our system to go over the hill, and all the things that are there. That's all there. The only thing
that's due to the track?
Yes.
Okay.
So the only thing that's left for you to do is underneath that, when you have a field turf, it drains straight down underneath that. And that's what they'll put in. It'll connect to what you already have. So before your last project, you would have enormous amounts of work to even think about doing this. But because you prepped a little bit for it, and you got this in case you ever wanted to go that route in the future, it's there kind of. So now you're just building off of what you already did.
Either option you, has to be a capital project and a vote.
Yes. Yep. No matter what you do, you have to do that. We'll have to, it'll be like phase 2, we'd have to have it voted on.
And no matter what you do, option 1 or option 2, that's a big amount.
Yeah.
I don't think the taxpayers can handle
But
it.
I think
I don't
it's,
think they'll vote for
is
it.
it 47,000, right? Everything's.
Well, you gotta look at it, I mean, I'm giving you a summary over a 15-year period, because you're getting that aid, but yeah, I mean, in general, I'm giving you an idea what 93% on your state aid on projects. Like it's, like if you had these kind of things in your house, you'd take these deals in a second, get
Right.
93% back on any work you did on your house. That's kind of what this capital project work is.
And you'd have a meeting to explain this to the public, so it's not.
Oh, you gotta have, it'd be just like I'm running fate, like, just like I did with everything else, there'd be a whole public hearing on
The
it,
number 9
there'd be.
million's there, but
Yeah.
it's not a
Yeah.
true
Yeah.
payment.
Yeah, I'd have to go through it, I'd have to have real numbers, exact numbers, they'd be approving exact numbers, you know, they'd know exactly what this is, and
What's exactly this federal project, state aid, federal aid in the federal project? What was your list there that you had there in that? It's
So-
all for clean air?
yeah, it's all air
What's-
quality.
What's all that new stuff we put in that elementary school doing? How old is all that stuff in the elementary building?
No, the systems in there are good, yeah, we're not replacing those. Yes, the HVAC systems in the classrooms, yeah.
Well, what do we have in that federal aid that we're getting, the federal project?
You have, a big chunk of it is your humidification unit that's gonna be on the pool. That's a big chunk. You have, the remaining exhaust fans that are in this building that are aging. You have some, you would have part of the conversions of your air conditioning of those systems to convert those over to air conditioning in the elementary. Part of that would be in there. Where's my list? The controls to control the air systems in here that aren't completed.
That's enough. Thank
Okay.
you. I
Yep.
heard what I wanted to hear.
Speaking about the air conditioning, I looked back one of the old emails. Rough estimate was still 750,000 for 31 units.
You know that coming off the top of your head. I'd have to look.
Well, I saw the email. so
Yeah, whatever I
it's
sent you
not-
would have been
not long
accurate.
ago, Yeah.
Yeah, whatever, what about accurate?
750,000 for 32 units is costing almost $24,000 and 193.55 cents per unit, basically, to put air conditioning in.
Yep,
And that's, I don't know.
yeah. So that's converting the systems that Mr. Kemmler just talked about there and the roof
31
unit and all those
$24,000 a piece to convert them. Then the
roof units, how many per classroom? How many roof units, is it 2 classrooms? Mainly 2 classrooms, so that's how many different roof units you have to have.
There's so many different holes we're putting in this roof and everything else, and we went through this project not too long ago with this roof, with skylights leaking and everything else. Just my thought on air
Yep.
conditioning still,
Yep.
for as many days as we're gonna get to use it. Now I'll go to, this turf.
Mhm.
What is the maintenance on turf?
So there's none, other than between 15 and 20 years down the road, you'll resurface it, just like your track.
None, okay? Same with the lights, maintenance and cost to the taxpayer and.
I would say the efficiency of the lights, I don't have an accurate cost for it, but they're gonna be
Just what I'm
high-end
thinking of.
efficiency
Yeah,
lights.
well,
There's 4 posts, I know that, there's 4 light posts, 2 on each side, that's how many are installed.
And then earlier, we're talking about teams, we don't even know if we're gonna have enough kids to field these teams, and we're gonna go out there and spend that kind of money. Just my thoughts,
Very valid point.
just my
Yep.
thoughts.
Maybe
Same.
that'll spark a little interest.
What?
With the soccer field, I thought when we talked about this before, but that might have been different because of the grass, but wasn't there an issue with like the size,
Yeah.
the soccer field versus?
Yeah, a little bit, but when you have the turf and we flatten it out, it's not gonna be as wide as the one you're playing on right now out there, so yes, it's a little bit more narrow, but you can basically almost use it all the way to the ends, you know what I mean, and then you
So
would allow.
regulation.
Oh, God, yeah, it's right, yeah, that's always been the case, it's just not, it's a little bit different though when you get an opportunity to play on turf with a little narrower field versus
Right.
grass crown field with that. all that to me is an issue for some people. The bigger issue for me is I'm worried that we're gonna put the lights in and everybody's going to be, want all these games on it. And I just can't, that's like, there's just, if you could've, like, I'll speak about Frankfurt, maybe they don't have an issue with it. Frankfurt plays a football game on Friday night, and then on Saturday morning, they have a girls' soccer game going on there, and I'm looking out there at this field. Don't ask me why I knew this, but I saw it. I'm like, oh my God, look at that field they're playing on. You know what I mean? We could work and roll and do some things to try to make it, but understand, that football field, the way it looks week after week, is not going to look like that. You're going to have dirt spots where the goals are. You're going to have, everybody that goes to our soccer games here sees what our soccer field looks like just in the end. That's just what soccer field played on.
What is just curious, I'm sure you don't know that, but to resurface a field like that, what's it cost?
To resurface, 15 years from now, it'd be in six figures to resurface.
So we're talking maintenance and everything now. I'm just gonna go back to the old saying we did when we first started capital project, BJ.
Yep.
We don't wanna build something that's gonna be a reoccurring cost to the
Yep.
taxpayers when we started
Yep.
with air conditioning and everything
Yep.
else.
Yep.
Remember that statement?
Yep.
Okay.
But right now you said you spend what, 9,000 a year to?
Yeah, what's Greener World's quote this year, Mr. Ray? Mr. Ray, what was Greener World's quote? Do you remember this year?
Around 10,000.
Yeah, it was around 10. Now, that's our soccer field, which we play games on, so we do that. We probably wouldn't have to do that if it was just a prep, you know what I mean? And so you'd be talking 10,000 a year that you wouldn't necessarily have to do, probably, right? We just do soccer and football. That's what we.
Yeah.
That's that, right? So you have them. They're at 10 grand a year for that.
Just
I'm okay exploring this.
My feeling is option one or option two, capital project, it's gonna cost us some big bucks. And I don't think the taxpayers can handle it one. I would say, my own personal opinion, and I know the family very well.
Mm-hmm.
Just thank them for the donation later, when I can do it. That's my own opinion.
It's specifically gotta be earmarked for lights, is what they're saying the donation is for? Was there any discussion to her to try to say, does it have to be? I'm
So,
sorry, to the donator.
Was June the first you heard about this?
yes.
June was the first you heard about it?
Yes.
Did anybody else in the system know about this before?
Nope. Nope, not at all. That was a complete walk
Well,
by. It was a walk by.
It was a shock to me in
Yes,
September.
yes.
That nothing was said before September.
It was a walk by. Well, yeah, it was a walk by. So yes, so I didn't know anything about it.
Yeah. Why was it kept a secret?
It wasn't kept secret.
I don't- Did anyone else
I
on
had-
this board know that donation was made?
I had to have.
Hasn't been made.
Hasn't
She-
been made.
It hasn't been made, we didn't approve it.
Talking about
Huh?
it.
It hasn't been made, correct?
It was the end of June. By the time multiple calls into this person, then get a hold of them, and then talk if that's real. I mean, like, I don't normally have people walk up to me and say something like that out of the blue, so I don't, I'll be honest with you, I gotta talk more about this and where it is, and, you know, and it's an anonymous donation, and there's a whole bunch of variables to it, so I didn't hide anything. When I was able to talk about things truthfully, I mean, I'm not gonna come out and talk about a donation till I know we're talking real here. I'm not gonna go, hey, guess what? Somebody came by, this has gotta be real. Like, I gotta know that you're real here, you know, and then I can start working on this, so.
Nothing was said until September. Not a thing.
Didn't know for sure, I don't think, so.
I just think if it's too good to be true, it's too good to be true, so I don't.
That family would not do that.
So, are we?
Find a
Right.
donation.
Well, anybody hates to decline a donation, but you hate to have it cost you more in the long run too. If it was something that we were doing or something that was already situated that we wanted to do.
To answer your question, it's a weird discussion for me to say, when someone says something specifically they wanna do, and then we go, hey, can we still have it for?
Oh, I just say, is that,
something
right, and I
else?
understand
Yeah,
that,
it's
but I'm
kind
just
of a
saying,
weird-
it doesn't, you know, geez, we're in a capital project, I'm just saying, or doing this or that, but is that's the only thing you're interested in is lights on the field, for how many times a year we're gonna use it?
Yeah.
Correct me if I'm wrong, but it's this whole project, 93% is covered by state aid. Or
Yeah,
covered.
yeah, once the aid starts rolling, it's 93%, yep, the second
So
year.
to the total taxpayer.
You pay you pay essentially 7% of the work you do on whatever the dollar amount
So
is.
this potential 47,000 is all it would cost us, we go out to the taxpayers for?
Kind of, because, I mean, again, don't quote me on all the numbers, because I have to give you real numbers, but because you're looking at 2.1 million being taken off the top with that money, yes, I mean, in aid, yes.
So do we want to move forward with at least looking at the ideas of this, or?
We could look at the numbers and see what it could roll out to be.
Yes? No?
See what it actually would cost.
It's gonna cost us in the long run. You wanna look at numbers, go ahead, but
We had, I agree with Carson, and, we have only had 3 games this year. Who knows how many we'll have next year?
well, who knows if you'll have a team.
Then you have all the soccer teams that can use it.
Yeah, if you have a team,
I mean, with track it gets dark.
population's getting lower every year in school.
We might be able to have sectional
I
games.
don't see any
again.
big families moving in unless we're gonna let the Amish play on.
Okay, so I think
All right,
almost
so,
everyone's in favor of at least.
so I'll be, and I'll try to get you a little bit more concrete on what we got here.
Oh.
Taxpayers.
Okay, universal pre-K.
Okay. So, speaking of additional dollars, so right now, for as long, way before my time, as long as I can remember, we've had a half-day pre-K program here at West Canada Valley, where you have morning, 2.5 hours, afternoon, 2.5 hours, 2 different groups. And the grant that you have that's in the high 80s or in the high 80s didn't really cover the cost of it, so you always paid a little bit of it, and the grant covered the rest of it. So that's how it's been done. It's been through BOCES, and the reason it's through BOCES is because they write the grant, and they have 2 schools that do it, Frankfurt and us, and that's just how it's been, and we really haven't touched it. So, what's changed is that the financials have changed. So if you look at the bottom of the full-day universal pre-K handout that I gave you, you used to get $86,204, and I think that we got another $5,000 correct this year we're gonna get, so that's gonna up that to about 91 for this year. But what they've done, New York State, is they've increased UPK funding significantly. They've increased it to a minimum of $268,401 with a potential enhancement of over $400,000 for the district to convert to a full day program. So what this does for us is it allows us to go full day. It will fully fund the program no matter what we do. And we would take it from BOCES, it would be our program, we'd run the grant, and we probably would have 2 pre-K classrooms in the elementary under this grant starting next year. So we met between our last meeting and this meeting, we met with the head of early learning at State Ed, went over all of this and our specifics. The paperwork, as our budget work starts, so does the paperwork for UPK for the following year. That starts in the upcoming weeks here. If you flip over to the second page, I tried to, and again, these are just really Mrs. Holmes and I just throwing out different ideas. Nothing's finalized, but I do want you to understand that the UPK classroom is really capped at 18 students, which includes 1 teacher and 1 teacher assistant. If you go to 20, which they'll allow you to max out at 20, you have to add another adult in that room with UPK, so it obviously makes sense to keep it at 18 or under, so that you have 2 different classrooms, 2 teachers, 2 TAs. Obviously, the kids will be here all day. They get breakfast and lunch. We've discussed, and I've put some flexibility with times on there and when they come in versus when the elementary kids come in. There are some restrictions on buses. We have to have monitors on buses, so for us to rearrange and not have to hire a million monitors, we'd have to kind of adjust some times with that. You have to have seats on the bus. We'd order new backs for the seats on the buses, which would flip down basically like car seats, and they're strapped in, the kids that are 4 and 3 years old on those buses. So you have to have those, so we've priced those out. Obviously, you have 2 new classrooms, so you have supplies and things to make it look like a pre-K room that you would need. Anything that's in that pre-K room now would be gone because they're BOCES and that would get out of here. Yeah, and we have the space over there. We have the existing pre-K room, and we have another room, larger room, because rooms have to be a little bit larger like kindergarten rooms, so we have those spaces. So that wing would be 2 pre-K rooms and 3 kindergarten rooms down on that wing in the elementary on that side. And I think that's it. And as I look at all these things and we started to price it all, this kind of money essentially pays for this in its entirety. We've had some discussion with them about the sustainability of this money, and the answer we get at this point is this is a full-time funding that's going into our state aid every year. So for what it's worth, this isn't like temporary funding for us to convert and then you figure it out. Sometimes I'm real cautious of that. Garth mentioned that just a few minutes ago. These things they'll give you incentives to get in and then it's on you the rest of the way type of thing. This is not one of those that I see being the case. This is a big push both at the state and national level to have full-day pre-K programs, get the kids out of the houses, get them into the buildings, get their education started. We've seen over time here our numbers significantly decrease, where our kindergarten numbers are not, which tells me that we've got kids here that aren't going to pre-K here right now. And they're either finding different locations, not coming at all, which is more likely. That could be due to a lot of different things. One of them, though, could be due to the half-day thing and transportation and middle-of-day pickups and drop-offs and a whole bunch of things that just aren't, necessarily doable like they maybe used to be. So I think there's a number of different things that play into that. Our hope is that we'll increase these numbers. We could have up to 36 without having to expand the pre-K classrooms with 2 classrooms of 18. We continue to remain, Mrs. Holmes, in the 40s when we get to kindergarten.
In kindergarten, I've
Yeah,
only
what
got
do we have
20
this year?
pre-K right now enrolled,
Yeah, we have 20, and what do we have for kindergarten right now?
43.
43. And last year we had like 20, low 20s in pre-K. So, we're looking at half, or, a little less than half of the kids that are in our kindergarten that aren't in pre-K. So it also allows us to control the pre-K, and I don't mean that in a negative way. It allows us to build from the pre-K ages up into our kindergarten programs and so forth, put the teachers that we want in those programs and so forth. So I just wanted to give you, and I put on there all the different positives that are here. My recommendation is that we pursue this. It's there. It's going to be a huge value, I think, long term. Mrs. Holmes agrees with that as well. And if everybody's in support of this, we'll get this started with the paperwork and get the logistics and keep you updated. Does anybody have any questions on this?
It's
Yes.
open to 3-year-olds?
3-year-olds that are going to turn 4 by December 1st. Understand that?
Yeah, I have one that's December 2nd.
Yes,
I know
yes,
that
you
one.
understand that rule. And that's a UPK rule. That's not that's a black and white UPK rule.
Now, my question is, so pre-K is, obviously you go to kindergarten after, but
Yep.
what if you have those 3 that turn 4?
Yep.
Can they repeat the program? Or do they have to seek, because I know some pre-Ks you can't, in the schools, you can't repeat, like you'd have to go
Yep.
to a different program.
Yeah,
For
technically,
that second year.
it depends on what type
You know what I
of,
mean?
there's a lot of different pre-K programs, but the UPK program is age specific. So, no, so
So
if
you
you,
have one room, 3, 4.
nope, they'll all be the same. It's just like it is now, nothing would change.
Okay.
The only reason I bring up a 3-year-old is because you can be 3 in September.
Well, no, like, and then like, they're not ready yet, so
I know,
where
what
do you
you're
go
saying.
with those kids?
Yeah, I know where you're going.
They can
That's
go
the
again?
That's the UPK, no, they don't, because they're
They're
too
still
old for
going to
UPK.
kindergarten.
They have to go to kindergarten. Yep.
But I mean, they're going to kindergarten now and they don't have any pre-K, so at least they've got some exposure to the curriculum
True.
before they get there.
Felix, we need more bus drivers.
Yeah. Felix is doing it.
Well, based upon the time schedule, that's why they were dismissing at, I think, at 1:30.
1:30.
So we would,
They could get out and get back.
yeah, we would logistically organize, so we don't have to hire monitors and bus drivers.
Regardless, they're going to kindergarten.
Yes, that doesn't change anything we're doing now. Yeah, that's the way it is now, that's the way it would be anyway.
Do they have to have special seating on a bus?
Yes, he said.
That's what we're talking about with the seating.
And do they need help getting into the seats?
Yep, every bus
So I
has
gotta
a
have a
monitor.
Oh, okay.
So we've got, with our alternate and how many, we've got some ideas on that, like, we might have a couple bus drivers on there, or we might have our monitors, we have to have another adult on there, so they'll be able to assist. It'll kind of look, I wanna envision like the 5 o'clock run type of look for the pre-K runs, kinda, that's what it would kinda look like.
You never know, I might have a lot of drop-offs, so.
Yeah, cause they're gonna have parents that, you're gonna have parents that might want to, bring their children if they can anyway.
And they'll have the option to, like a regular student, they can get picked up by bus, but
Yeah.
parent pick up or vice versa,
Yeah.
they can have that flexibility
Yeah.
too,
would be-
within reason.
Yep,
Not different every day, but.
Now that I'm in favor of.
okay. Thank you, Mr. Russo.
Finally.
Any other questions on universal pre-K? So thank you, we'll move forward with that and get our
Very
planning ready.
exciting.
Can you let Sandy know this?
Yes. She's aware.
Sandy.
Your work policies?
Yeah, she's aware.
Okay. Budget calendar.
Okay, in your packets is your, believe it or not, budget calendar and assumptions for the upcoming budget season here. So, as always, I have that in front of you. Not looking for any sort of approval. You'll approve this next month as part of the budget workshop 1, which starts in December. But I did want you to get a look at it a month ahead of time, so I can answer any questions you might have about it, or anything that you would look into or like me to change between now and next month before you do that approval. This is a pretty typical, schedule and pretty typical guidance in terms of our budgets that we've done together in here. Does anybody have any questions for me on that at this time? Okay. So you have it. If anything comes up between now and next month, let me know. We'll just look at it one more time, and if everything looks good in December, we'll approve it and get rolling.
Okay. Bus replacement plan.
So, we mentioned this last month, and I have Mr. Ray here again tonight. Typically, I give you this as part of Budget Workshop 1. It'll be in that packet next month as well. It'll continue to be in the packet throughout the entire budget process. But one of the things that we're fighting here, as you can see with us not having the new buses right now, is kind of putting our provisional orders in for them earlier so that we can get the buses earlier. Now, none of our buses are official until they're voter approved in May anyway. But like always, you're not waiting until May to order them. So if it did ever get voted down in terms of the bus purchases, then we would be able to cancel those orders and we wouldn't have them. But we want to place our intentions to order those buses a month earlier than we did in typical times, which is usually in December. Because I don't know if it'll be exactly a month or what it'll be, but basically what Mr. Ray, and you can fill this in further, Mr. Ray, what you're hearing is if we can get that in pretty quick and our intentions to move forward with our bus replacement plan are in, we got a shot at getting them maybe when?
Maybe this time next year. If we wait till December like we did before, because there's a lot of other districts that do the same thing, because there's some incentives for ordering earlier with our warranties, looking like the following spring. So it'd be almost like a 6-month push by waiting 1 month to order.
So we're looking at December, January right now from our last year's order, and they're telling Mr. Ray that the way things look, we'd be looking at the spring if we did exactly the same thing. If we can get them in, then maybe we can get them in at this time next year instead of next spring.
You got the new bus yet?
No.
The state's also looking at, or is changing the way they do their pricing to quarterly instead of annually. So there'll be quarterly increases instead of annually increases too. If you don't order, so if some districts that wait till May to actually order their buses, they might be paying a higher rate than what we are.
So essentially, the bus replacement order is the same as we've done in the past. It's 3 5-year-old buses, large buses that go out, with 3 new 5-year-old buses, and 1 small bus. This is not a wheelchair year, so it's a regular small bus that will, 5-year-old small bus that we'll be going out with. So I guess I'll answer any questions you have on that. I put we got all the quotes are on there, the financials are on there, just like I give you. As long as everybody's in support of continuing with our bus replacement plan here, we would move forward right away, and Mr. Ray would contact Leonard and New York Bus Sales and let them know we're pushing ahead with the replacement plan.
If, for instance, I don't see it, I hope it never fails, but if it did fail, do they charge us for canceling it?
No.
I would go ahead and order them in September, we know what the hell the plan's gonna be every year.
We could.
No, I'm just saying,
Yeah,
especially if you're gonna get a better price.
Yeah.
We know what it's gonna
Yeah.
be.
As long as we're continually supporting what
Right.
we're doing here every year,
I don't see why, I would hope it never failed. I mean, it's worked tremendously over these last years. I wouldn't
Okay.
know why anybody would, but
Yep.
I just say order them whenever you wanna order them. We know what the plan is every year.
All right.
That's simple.
Okay. School safety.
Okay. Okay. As we approach, and again, I'm not looking for necessarily a decision on this as well. Obviously, school safety is always top priority in this room. It's a top priority in general at schools across the country. We're always constantly looking at ways in which maybe we can enhance school security and so forth. We go to a lot of different trainings, a lot of different things on a lot of different, enhancements and so forth. And obviously, people trying to jump on, the idea of school safety financially is out there, so you get a lot of stuff that's really not conducive to schools and so forth. Some schools have attempted to try the traditional metal detectors in their buildings. The efficiency of a true metal detector is not really something that's feasible in schools. It would take an enormous amount of time, especially in a larger school, to do all that, like you think of when you go to the county office where you're throwing your stuff in the bucket and going through it, or the airports. Those are just tough for school districts. The next thing that has come out, or the newest things that have come out in the region, are systems that are referred to as weapon detection systems, which you don't have to necessarily empty your pockets and do some things that you would do in a traditional metal detector, and they're designed to assist in identifying potential weapons that are coming through and to deter people from coming in the building through there with a weapon and so forth. But it will not pick up everything, and that's an important part of those kinds of things. As you may or may not read about, with those things. If anybody went to the state fair this year, for whatever reason, and you walked in there, you walked through some of those systems this year, you didn't have to take things out of your pocket. They rented them for that, so they're out there. Did some work and some conference stuff with that, met with those people as well. Ultimately, in the end, there's everybody has all these different things and things you put in place, and it takes all a teamwork to create the safe thing. And I think we've done a lot of good things with that here. I think, as a group in here and a group out there every day, I think we've got some really identified areas that we think of when we talk about security, and things that we really want to make sure that might open us up to things that aren't as secure. So we've really tried to guide our direction that way. One of the things that I've never brought up in here, for a lot of different reasons, but the main reason is because I don't think we could get anybody, is the idea that, yes, we are one building here, but we are technically 2 buildings, even though we're connected. And the idea of potentially adding a second resource officer to the facility, where you would have one in the high school, one in the elementary, throughout the day. I wouldn't bring this up in the past because I don't think we would get anybody. But now, in speaking with the sheriff's department and some things that are going on, and getting some part-time employees that are just school resource officers, There would be potential if I reached out to the sheriff's department to add another one. It would be less expensive than what we've done in the past because it's not a full-time sheriff's department that's working right now. So our current SRO that we have is a full-time sheriff's department person. So when they're not here, we'll say I have a snow day, they report to the county. They report to the sheriff's department, they go to jail, they do whatever they have to do that day. The people that are here would be people that just work here at the school. They're, you know, retired law enforcement that have the ability to carry a weapon on campus, and they would work the school schedule basically. So they're not being paid in the summer; they're being paid at a rate that's different, which is a rate that would be different for us. And there would be a strong possibility I could get another one. So I think it's important that I share that with you, where before I didn't have that ability, because when I go to all these things, and in the end, if you're asking me to take the next step in enhancement here, the investment in that is far cheaper than the things that I just talked about. And if we talk about the realities of those things and what they could prevent or may prevent, I don't know, because I don't think everybody thinks in terms of traditional. If I'm going to do something to harm people, I'm going to come through the front door, and that's just not really how it works. So, but if you're asking me if truthfully, it's challenging to go back. We have an assigned schedule for our SRO because we highlight the areas that we think are most susceptible, and that's where we place him at times. But that's not to say that there isn't multiple different things going on at once at times and all these kinds of different things. So I guess my question today as we approach budget season is this something that as a district we want to explore? It's kind of like the question I asked you earlier. I'm not saying you think we definitely should, but if I'm going to explore it, I gotta do it now, because I gotta put my name in of interest and see if by next September I can get a body and get some costs for you for the budget and those kinds of things. Questions on that?
Would they just be assigned to
Would
you, the resource officer?
Yeah, they would be assigned by the sheriff's
So you
department.
have your choice?
I don't think I would have a choice. I don't know what the variables would be. Sometimes they might go, we have 3 different people. We get a little bit more leverage here because we jumped into the sheriff's department way before everybody else did, to be quite honest, and then they all got people after. So I always feel like I got a little bit more because we got into that and we got the business started for the most part. Our SRO from the sheriff's was the first one was here. And now a lot of schools have the sheriff's department people. And that's kind of how it expanded, I think, where there's people available now, because it's become part of it. There's a new, the new sheriff is there. Oneida County did it, and they've got a whole bunch, and then this new sheriff's, one of his things is to get some, people in the schools, if the schools want them, so.
Would you be able to look into, I feel like it would be nice to have someone else on campus for that, for the elementary.
Yeah.
Do we have to wait till September? I mean, if everybody's in favor of it, do we have to wait till September?
So, so it's, typically, yes, we would wait because it would be an item that we would budget. Do we have to? No. What would be I could price, could you get somebody now, and what would be the cost for the remainder of this budget season? But you'd have to understand that would be whatever, no matter what that number is, if it's $10 or whatever, that's a number that I don't have in a budget line. It would increase our resource officer budget line, and we have to move money to get there and those kinds of things. But, if it was something that we wanted me to explore ahead of time and grab somebody, I'd probably talk to Kelly. I can look at her now, but yeah, but I guess my discussion tonight is for budget. The reason I bring it up tonight is for budget planning stuff. So,
So Officer Kerr would stay over here or?
However we design it, but yes, he would remain here. He's remaining here, and then we would add another person from down there. And if there wasn't somebody right now that, they don't go just get them unless somebody requests it. So if I go and request that we are looking for somebody, then there may take some time to locate somebody
I'm just thinking too, like if you're waiting until next September, like where I work, we have it in every building. And it started with the two elementary buildings, they were every other day, but then there was just a need, we have one every day. So you don't wanna, I'm coming from a point of not financials, but there may not be someone there next
Understand.
September.
Understand.
Well, I gotta kind of agree with her on this one, even though I don't like spending money. But if it's something that's important enough, you think, you can't get them quick enough. I mean,
Yeah.
look at the speed limit. If we didn't do it and it was,
Yep.
something happened,
Yep.
right? We
Yep.
would have been kicking ourselves and saying,
Yep.
why didn't we do it?
Yep.
And if we need one that bad, I think you ought to look into it.
Okay.
And you can't tell me you can't find it in that budget,
Okay.
because I'm sure I could find it.
Okay.
So we're gonna go forward and,
So let me look into it.
Yeah.
Yes, let me look into it between now and next month and see what he's got. Let me talk to the sheriff. Let me see if even what we're asking for is even an option. Like, do you have somebody that's sitting there in the wings ready to roll, or somebody who's
Well, what
subbing?
I've seen it.
I mean, he may have somebody subbing in different places that's looking to get into a school too.
Well, that's
So,
what, you
yeah,
know,
Yep.
and your administrators, they
And even if
probably
it's
want them
not,
sooner rather
even
than
if
later,
you don't have
right?
them for the rest of the year, you don't have them every day, just the presence of the
Yep.
thought that somebody else is here.
Yep.
But while we're on the safety topic,
Yes.
you know, once before we had approached the state police about maybe getting in the garage or doing this or doing that. You know, we got a piece of land that sits across the road from us that we get a few $100s a year out of. I don't see why if, you know, the presence of a state police or a state police barracks or something over there, if we were to initiate something with them, might kind of deter people or something
Yeah,
about
that'd be like a
considering
stopping
something like
point,
that.
like by the Ace Diamonds,
Well,
you know.
oh, like you mean like the substation?
they
in,
got a
like,
substation in
Poland or
Poland,
something?
which is a little dinky thing. I mean, as far as the taxpayers and everything, if everybody wants a secure building and maybe something that helps it, we got a piece of land across the street that don't cost us nothing, maybe it's time to put up a small building over there, or talk to the state police and let them put their barracks right over there. We got state police right across from the school. I would think that would deter somebody from thinking about doing something over here.
Yep.
For the few $100s that we get out of it for a
Yep.
year, that'd never be put on the tax roll anyways.
Slow them down as they drove by too.
Yeah, that would slow them down, there you go.
I mean,
I'm just saying, even if we
yeah.
had to put a building up for them, there it is, you're not gonna get much more protection than that,
Right.
just a
What
thought.
substation in Poland?
The old fire.
The old firehouse.
Back of the old firehouse.
And then they're visible, they're right here,
Yep.
they're centrally located.
Didn't we do that once before?
There's somebody,
What's
something
that?
over there?
Didn't we offer that land to them once
Well,
before?
They don't use it
To some
anymore.
extent, I believe we did.
And then in the back, there's a
I wasn't part of it. I remember I was talking about.
But I'm saying, I don't care if we have to put up a building,
Well, it
if
was
you're gonna
years
put you up
ago. It was years
a
ago
building,
we
it's gonna
talked
cost you
about
$100,000, so what?
Mhm.
That's all I'm saying. I mean, we talked about the bus garage before, they needed a shower, they needed this and that and blah, blah, blah. But you know what, maybe it's time to, put an investment across the street from us.
Any other points on safety or any other discussion? All right, I will look into that, and see, and get back to you on what I find out.
Interesting.
All right, we have some policies here. Policy 5, 6, 8.
So these are all things, you can see what the current one is, and we'll update the dates and everything on these and so forth. But you can see, we had an update 20, this is not an old policy, but if you go into your new policy, you'll see some new language in there. Just gonna take you through that a little bit. There's some state disaster emergencies, like what just happened. We've gotta have, and quite honestly, we have all this stuff because we already had to do it. So, if we ever had to go full remote again for whatever reason, we have to have those, in our plans. There's discussions, if you look at the bottom of, and there's a star next to it because we're, just that would consider the idea of panic alarm systems. That's another thing that it can stay in there because all we need to do is consider it. We would leave it there. Right now, quite honestly, I haven't seen one that's a perfect system in terms of panic alarm systems. So that's another thing, but it's something they're trying to advise you to do. So you want to have that in there that we know that it's a possibility that we could use that at some point in time. And again, everything that's in blue is dealing with emergency school closures, Yep, and emergency remote instruction. The biggest piece of this whole update is related to the idea that we have to be ready to switch to remote instruction. All of us are all very prepared to switch to remote instruction. Everybody's got one-to-one devices, we got Wi-Fi, we've got, hope to God that we don't have to, but we have to have that in our plans, so.
What do you do for areas in the district that do not have internet?
So, yeah, we have hotspots that we send to them that can be used in some places. We're supposed to offer opportunities for them to be in the Wi-Fi area of our school. There's just some different things, but mainly the hotspots are the ways that we are able to get to them, or they get to places where they can use those. So, and sometimes it depends. Sometimes we had to buy AT&T. We had to buy 2 different services because once you get up in Norway, yeah, there's like Norway's better AT&T than, so that's what we did during the whole remote process too. So.
Okay. Any more questions on that one? Okay, motion to waive the second reading of policy 5681, school safety plans. Sean first, Sarah second, all in favor? Okay, motion to approve policy 5681, school safety plans. Sean first, Sean second, all in favor? Okay, policy 7350.
Believe it or not, every year I have to fill this out, that corporal punishment has not occurred in this school. So this is a policy that every district has to have. You can see ours is 2008 currently in there. If you flip over to the new one that's on here, emergency interventions will be provided appropriate training and staff, effective restraint procedures, the parent or persons in front of relations. Need to be contacted on the same day or reasonable attempts are made. The building principal record the attempts when applicable, report attempts to committee on special education. Mainly, you have to have in there that you are, if any sort of restraining or anything that is done in your building for whatever reason, you have to have in policy that parent will be contacted as soon as possible, just to simplify it. So this is just language that has to be in your policies that you don't have right now.
Questions?
Quick question.
Sure.
For like restraints and stuff like that, because that does occur, how many staff members do you have that are trained in that?
Yeah, so I can say pretty confidently here, since I've been doing this, we haven't had to restrain anybody. We do have some people in our special education that are trained in that. That's mainly where our restraining people are.
Like your TAs?
Yeah, some of them are, we're trained back, some of them, but some of that stuff that they were trained on is no longer legal either, so there's
You're updated, obviously you're
Yeah.
updated on that.
Yeah, so we don't, generally that's, not something,
But you don't want anybody that's not
yes, correct.
trained to
Yep,
do that.
you're correct. So,
I'm trained on that.
yeah,
So
so
I
there's,
got trained last year.
yeah, so there's a lot of people that have gotten training on different things with that. I can't give you the whole list right now, but.
Okay. Motion to waive the second reading of policy 7350, corporal punishment and emergency intervention. Janine first, Sean second, all in favor? Motion to approve policy 7350, corporal punishment, emergency intervention. Sarah first, Janine second, all in favor? Okay, policy 7530.
So this is child abuse and maltreatment, another updated policy that everybody needs to make sure is up to date. Again, reporting information to Child Protective Services, the people that are required to under law to do so. Mandated reporting is all in here. All the updated language is in here. You'll see the cross-outs on page 2 that are on here for updates on the old language. This is not an old policy that we had, it's from 2020. But this is essentially the same policy with a few editorial changes in it. And it keeps us intact with all the mandated reporting requirements the school has to reporting child abuse and maltreatment. So, any questions on that?
Okay, a motion to waive the second reading of policy 7530, child abuse and maltreatment. John first, Sarah second, all in favor. Motion to approve policy 7530, child abuse and maltreatment. Sean first, Sarah second, all in favor. Okay, announcements. We have one that's not on here, but this Saturday, the 19th, is the crafter in the gym.
Yep.
In the gym, 9 to 3. November 23rd through the 25th is Thanksgiving recess. December 1st, which the date changed on that. December 1st is the high school winter concert at 7 p.m. December 12th is our next Board of Education meeting. December 14th is the elementary winter concert at 7 p.m. And December 22nd through January 2nd is winter recess.
What grades is the elementary winter concert, do we know? Is it?
Which ones do they do this time around? I'm not even sure which ones they
Yeah,
do this
is
time
it
around.
still split?
They mix them up, yeah.
Public comments? Do you have any questions? Okay, motion to adjourn. Sean first, Jimmy second, all in favor.
Thank you, everybody. Have a really nice Thanksgiving to everybody.